This is my 66 Corvette. If you've been following along on this build, while you've seen me put the chassis together, and now I'm getting ready to start doing some body work. First thing I'm going to do is get rid of these fender flares on the back end. Somebody put these things on here, and I'm not a big fan of fender flares. Maybe they're okay if you're got super wide tires and you're road racing or something, but just on the street, it's not a good look to me. They didn't mess up the front, fortunately. So what I've got is some replacement panels that I can cut those existing fender flares out, and these things will bond right in their place. The first thing I'll have to do is cut a chunk of this out, and I'm gonna cut it a little undersized to start with, and then I can open it up to where I can have a real nice fit. These little repair panels are marked right rear. Of course, I'm doing the left side too. What I've done, it's 3.5 inches from the crease here up to the top. So I measured 3 inches from here up to here. Then that'll leave me a 1/2 inch extra that once I can lay this in there, I can lay it out a little better. Same thing on the front and the back. I've left myself about a 1/2 inch extra. I'm going to cut 1/2 inch inside of where this is going to go. And so I'll cut this out to start with, and then I can lay this up in there a little better and make a more precise cut. I'm going to need to get all of the Bondo and old fiberglass that's attaching this flare to the side off of there. But anyway, I'm going to start by making that cut right there. Okay, what I've got here is the original fiberglass part of the body is along the inside here, and then this other part where it's raised up here is part of that fender flare that's been fiberglassed up into it. So I've got to knock all of that off, because this whole area around here I want to get down to the original fiberglass. Okay, all this gray here is the original fiberglass. So now I'll lay this on there and get these peaks lined up on both ends. Get my wheel well openings pretty good on both ends. And rather than have a sharp corner here, I'm gonna just give myself a little radius. Okay, I think that's going to be okay. Okay, I've put some little tabs on here with some screws. I just made these out of some little plastic I had. And so that'll allow me to get that in position. And then I'll put some screws into here to hold it in place. That will allow me to make sure before I fiberglass anything, everything's lined up exactly the way it needs to be. Yeah, I think that's pretty good right there. All right, I've got it in position now, and the crease along the side looks pretty good going down there. It's about as good as I think I'm going to be able to get it. Now what I've got to do is clean it up real good on the inside, scuff it, and then put some fiberglass patches in between those screws all the way around and let that cure, and then I can pull the screws out of there, put another layer over the entire underneath side, and then I'll come on the top side here and kind of bevel that out a little bit and lay some fiberglass in there. I went ahead and got most of the paint off of this body, and then I've got several fiberglass repair areas to work on, so I thought I'd just get all the paint off of it and then do all the fiberglass work at the same time. I've got this scuffed pretty good up under here. Then when I get the screws out, I can finish those little areas. All right, it's been one full day, so the stuff I put up underneath here is cured out pretty good at this point. Those little tabs did their job. Feels pretty good, looks pretty good. Okay, I put one continuous strip all the way down here. Before I did that, I put a little piece at each one of these spots where the screws had come through. So I believe it's pretty well supported underneath. Now once that cures, I can bevel out the top and lay some fiberglass in there. This is just some acetone that I'm using here. Okay, I'm working in the shade, so I got more time to work with this fiberglass, and then I'll roll it out in the sun. I'm going to put a couple of layers of cloth down first, because it's actually a little stronger than the mat, but it's my understanding that cloth is likely to, the crosshatch pattern on it is likely to show through in the paint, so I don't want to use it for the final layer. And you can see this is a fairly narrow strip right down in the deep part of the hollowed out area. So I just want to make sure it's fully wet down and soaked in. Next, I've got a little bit of wider strip, slightly wider, that I'll put on there. Now I'm going to go with some of this chop stranded mat. Now I'm going to take some of this and just kind of like lay it in here and pull this apart here. And kind of use this as a means for kind of feathering it out around the edges. This is just a little fiberglass roller to kind of help put a little pressure on it and smooth it out. And it helps to compress all the layers down against each other. Now I'm going to put one more little patch right through the middle. I don't need this full thickness, so I'm just going to kind of separate it, lay it in there. And I should have had my gloves on, but I got started going and forgot to put my gloves. So then my hands were a little bit sticky, so I just have to go with it, and I'll clean them off in a minute with some acetone. Okay, I think I'm gonna call that good for now. As I look down here, it looks pretty flat across there. Same thing through here, looks like a nice contour. So once that all sets up, then I will sand it, and if there's any real low areas, I can put more fiberglass. Otherwise, probably a little skim of body filler, and it's going to be just right. So I'll roll it back out in the sun now and let that set up. I'm going to try and knock this down a little bit. I've got some 60 grit paper on my DA sander. One thing I didn't show is after I got all this on here, I came in here and hollowed this out just a little bit and laid fiberglass in the joint right here where the patch panel meets the original body. Same thing up front here. That feels pretty good right now. Pretty uniform. So what I'm going to do now is take some of this vet panel adhesive and filler. It's specifically made for fiberglass, and put a little skim coat over this entire area, and then I'll sand that, blend it in nice and smooth. And because this is a radius coming down, meets another radius coming that way, and from back to front, it kind of has a curvature going from the back towards the front around this way. Why, a little bit of this blended back here, I can just contour that all in real nice, and you'll never know that it isn't 100% original. Okay, I'm putting this stuff on in the shade because even though it's only about 60 degrees out here today, I don't want it getting so warm that it sets up before I have time to get it on here. The gray that went on here was a epoxy primer. I put one nice wet coat of that on there. This white is a high build filler primer. I put 2 coats of it on there. Now I'm going to put a guide coat on it and block sand it, and then put at least 1 more coat of the high build on it and final sand that, and then it'll be ready for paint. I'm using a dry powder guide coat. It's basically just a carbon powder. This is just water I'm putting on here. I've also got this little round sanding block for right in this radius here. Works real good in there. It blocked out pretty good. That little dark spot there is where it's almost into the gray primer. Right there is a spot, very hard to see. Right up here is a little area. So I'll put a little skim of filler on there and then sand that out, and then it'll be ready for another coat of the high build filler primer. And then I will block that and it'll be ready for final paint. I think it turned out pretty good. The reason I went with this orange color, the car originally was Mosport green. I'm not a fan of green. It had been repainted twice in the blue, and there's only about a jillion C2 Corvettes painted blue. So I wanted something a little different. This side turned out pretty good too. So I went with this orange, which is one of the correct color choices for 2006 Corvette. So I stayed with an original Corvette color, just not 1966.